Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Gripe, the show for short, sweet reviews of new release movies, plus the one thing that annoyed me the most. And today I will be talking about the new film Alien Covenant, and there are some major spoilers. A ship of colonists is traveling into deep space in search of a new world and a new life for humanity. But after a cosmic event diverts them to another habitable planet, they find their hope for a better future facing a horrifying new kind of hell. The film stars Michael Fassbender, Catherine Waterston, Billy Crudup, Danny McBride, Demian Bichir, Carmen Egojo, and Guy Pearce. And the film is directed by Ridley Scott. First of all, I should mention how Alien is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's a near perfect horror film. Now, that being said, they will never be able to make a movie that lives up to the first two. Alien worked so well because of the mystery and H.R. Giger's design, as well as the simplicity of the horror. But the pacing of the original wouldn't play so well with today's audience, as a new movie at least. So it really begs the question, is Alien Covenant at least a decent sequel in this nearly 40-year franchise? Yes and no, and you knew that was coming, right? While a lot of people have rightfully criticized this movie for various reasons, it's not all bad. In the span of Alien movies, it's probably the third best, just ahead of Prometheus. But the gap between Covenant and Aliens, which I say is the second best Aliens movie, is extremely wide. Ridley Scott returns to attempt to breathe some of the original horror life back into the franchise. And while it does succeed in small doses at capturing the horror, the film overall is closer to Aliens in terms of its style. And that means it leans more on the action versus the survival horror that made the first Alien film so strong. Some of the best horror in this film occurs early in the movie as they're exploring the planet. But one of the downsides to it, and one of the things that really does tone down the horror, is the overuse of CGI as opposed to practical effects. Even in moments that are well constructed, the CG actually brings down that fear factor. The cast of Cattle is a mix of famous faces and newer faces. Catherine Waterston leads the colonist team as someone who really taps into both her fear and her strength. She might be the most decisive heroine we've seen in the franchise outside of Ripley. Danny McBride was actually kind of a surprise because it's Danny McBride, and at least his character's disposition really did surprise me, because I really expected him to be a trope, but he never really is. And then Billy Crudup is always solid, even here as the man of faith who makes the big bad decision that affects them all. But of course, the star of stars has to be Michael Fassbender, who reprises his role of David from Prometheus, as well as another android character, Walter. Now, this movie is really about him, and it's extremely important, so here's where the big spoiler is, so turn back now if you're not interested in knowing what that is. We find out that David the android is actually responsible for creating the xenomorph as we know it. After committing mass genocide on the engineer planet, the engineers from Prometheus, he tinkers with the formula to create the perfect survival being capable of wiping out any weaker species like humanity. While this is really a big middle finger to the overall timeline of the Alien franchise, it's still absolutely fascinating as a twist. David is truly the first non-xenomorph villain in the franchise that isn't some faceless company man, someone who actually has some purpose behind him. And I certainly appreciated that they gave us a real villain, especially somebody who's this creator and the idea of creation destroying the weak creator. It was just a really fascinating twist, and Michael Fassbender plays it amazingly well. We even get a little Fassbender on Fassbender action. My key gripe, though, is while the movie overall isn't bad, the first act setup is really bad in a few ways. First of all, they're set off course because of a neutrino blast that actually wouldn't do the damage that they show. They make it seem like, it tears the ship apart and kills people and rips apart their solar shields and all that. But that wouldn't happen in reality because there's no gravity in space. It's that kind of bad science that sinks sci-fi movies like this. The next one is one of the biggest gripes about Prometheus was how they removed their helmets on the planet. Yet here, when they land on this completely unknown planet, they have absolutely no idea what the conditions are. They don't wear any kind of protection. No suits, no helmets, nothing. They just walk out onto an alien planet. And third, they just abandon their objective for no real reason. It's not like they can't reach their objective. It's not like the ship is so irreparably damaged that they can't move forward. One person dies and the rest of them don't want to go back into cryosleep, so they're like, here, let's just go to this other planet that we know absolutely zero about. What all this boils down to is the first act is just a ton of manufactured coincidences that sends them to the planet. none of which should have actually done that. But they basically just give themselves a reason to end up on this planet. It's basically saying people don't care how they get there, just as long as they get there. But guess what? I care. Overall, while it's far from a great movie, Alien Covenant at least stands on its own legs better than many of the predecessors, though it never gets close to the heights of films like Alien and Aliens. With some new twists, it adds an intriguing dimension to the franchise that was fumbled in Prometheus. And with a fantastic final scene, it's very likely this won't be the last we see of David or our friendly neighborhood xenomorph. I'm giving Alien Covenant a 6.5 out of 10 for, again, being a better sequel than we've seen from the Alien franchise, which does have some redeeming moments in it, but it's also not anywhere near as good as what we've seen in the past. Let me know your thoughts on Alien Covenant. Let me know if you're one of the people who hated, and let me know exactly why you hated it. And that does it for this episode of Key Gripe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Nice work. Good job. If you like what you saw, you can just go ahead and click that subscribe button for all videos past and future. You can also head over to my website and see all the other stuff that I do, including the books I've written. So go ahead, click stuff.